You're working with Lana on Lasso, and that's said to be a country album. What do you think it is about country music? You touched on this a little bit in the LA Times piece, but I'm curious for you to expand on it, that it's just resonating right now in culture to such a degree.
I think the resonance of country music is analogous to why the most expensive restaurant in the world is like a carrot that came right out of the ground with oil on it.
Hey, what's going on? It is Kevin Kenny. This is a brand new Audacy check-in coming to you from the Hard Rock Hotel in New York. And our special guest on album release day is Jack Antonoff of Bleachers.
How are you?
What's going on, man?
A lot.
This is, I know, right? What a question to kick off with. But you are sort of like, I will deem you this if no one else has on the promo cycle. You are like Mr. New York this week. We're here in Times Square at the Hard Rock. We've got beautiful views of the city. You were on Colbert earlier this week.
New York?
New York, going on the checklist. I think we got two. And then maybe the third, the biggest one, MSG officially announced.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Mega New York.
Yeah.
New York.
That is like, yes.
New York.
That's
New York.
Probably half the address.
Yeah. Hey. No, that's real crazy.
We'll just kind of like stew on that for a moment, though, because, of course, it's well documented. I mean, a main character on this album is New Jersey. It sort of dictates the point of view of the music. You being from New Jersey, of course, that is just like, no disrespect to the Continental Airlines Arena. That is like the Mecca.
It is, and also like the perspective of New Jersey is so looking in, and like the Garden kind of you just imagine all these things happening in the city, and yeah, Garden's at the center of that.
You've made this record after going through quite the journey personally. You've talked about this in a lot of interviews and TV appearances of sort of stripping away this armor and this mythology that we tell ourselves about whether it's shortcomings or struggles in relationships. And of course, you're a happily married guy now. You just won your third straight Producer of the Year award at the Grammys. Do you think of this record that people can finally listen to today as the culmination, like a culmination record, or almost like a new beginning record?
I see like a planted flag on a journey.
Like a dividing line.
Yeah. Something I'd written so much about the past and the future in my life, and it's sort of been bobbing around on what had happened and what could happen, that something happened with this album where I just kind of landed on my feet. I don't know why, but but I started writing from that point of view.
I'm rarely as struck by PR talking points in press releases as I am a bunch of things that were said in the press release I was given for the new Bleachers album. And one of those things I wanted to ask you about is they were talking about, in terms of this album, what it examines is this sensory contradiction of modern life. And I was really struck by that terminology. Can you expand on that?
Well, I waxed on about a lot of things that I see and feel out there. And I kind of feel like a lot of it is juxtaposed with the band playing, which is so human, but then there's all these synthetic elements. So there's just this like big clashing of just humanity and modernity all at once. And quite literally in the music. If my drummers are playing, I'll program something on top of them and have both of the things bouncing off each other. And so it's present in the lyrics, but it's very present in the music of the literal clash of synthetic and organic.
And is part of that too what you were talking to the LA Times about, which I loved hearing, where it's just you kind of feel, and it's a fact, sort of technological innovation, especially over the course of the last 20 years, it slowed down just a little bit because it was just exploding there for so long, especially in how you made music. And what you've done with your collaborators is you've sort of gone back to classic instruments and you've tried to use them in a new and innovative way and almost find innovation through tradition, if you will. Is that part of that same sort of thing you're talking about?
Well, I'm just more interested in like shocking people with known things. Like I think about it like, if I can make a guitar sound different, if I can have my drummers play, it's why I like having two drummers off each other in a way that is like you know these are drums, but feel specific and different to me. That's just. There's more interesting and gratifying to me than, flying all the way over here for the sake of doing it. So I often like a specific palette and then just like trying to find something really shocking within it.
And as just a huge Daniel Johnston fan, and I'll ask this for the one Daniel Johnston fan probably watching this interview, this drawing you have of Daniel's is in your studio. What's the story of that?
I have this Daniel Johnston. It's Bruce Springsteen's head that Daniel Johnston cut out, taped on this piece of paper, and then sort of like drew the body and then kind of like drew around it. It was really odd and kind of outside of a lot of the other stuff that Daniel Johnston made. And obviously I love Daniel Johnston, I love Bruce, and the thing together is very me coded.
Speaking of Bruce, you obviously worked with him on Chinatown. You performed with him live, and that's just it's crazy how much you've done in the world of music, because that's really just one of these amazing sort of lifelong dreams that have happened for you.
Thanks.
And
Making me feel nice.
well, no, I'm not just blowing smoke. And you combine that with 3-time in a row Grammy Producer of the Year. What is it like, and what are the effects of being if you consider success and dreams and aspirations as a mountain, you're sort of on the other end of that sort of mountaintop. You climb the mountaintop, and that by no means dictates the end of anything. It can just be the beginning of new adventures. But what does that feel like? How does that sort of land with you?
Well, I don't think about it a ton, because it's like a different mountain. The mountain I'm kind of like on, or always looking at, is like the songwriting one, and it's so like it just keeps growing. You always like, just when you have something figured out, it's like a whole new thing opens, which is really mysterious and sometimes frustrating when it comes to writing. And so I find that if I stay there, I don't think about anything else, and that's where I feel valuable. So like everything you just said is like so cool, but then part of me is just like, I don't know what to do with it all. So then I end up kind of retreating a little bit to where I feel this like wild excitement, which is really in the studio or on tour. And I guess in a way that's limiting, because I don't always give a lot of other stuff thought, because I'm really just like, my life I feel like is a little bit like, wow, crazy, back in the studio.
Well, it's almost like this should be a song title, but like Dinners in the Studio. You're telling Willie Geist that?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's a great concept though, and that's kind of what you're talking about.
You get to this point where like, it's a gift and a curse, like if you can really like feel yourself somewhere, you want to stay there, but then you also want to have a life outside of it. So got to work really hard to find that balance when you're very passionate about something, because it can eat other things alive.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You've worked with such a long list of artists. I mean, from Taylor to the 1975 to Florence, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious, as obviously a non-producer, as a layman, do each of those experiences and artists teach you something about yourself, almost akin to a past relationship?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, they're also more than like, they're also my friends and people I spend a lot of time with, even outside the studio. So from them, from my family, from my band, it's all kind of on the same level of, that's like my little community, and that's where I'm bouncing my experience of like how I'm out there in the world, or my general humanity off of. So what I'm feeling and learning is endless.
Does mental health as a producer, some people can compare a producer to a therapist, to use a cliche. Is that ever come up in the studio? Like, is that ever something you talk about that leads to great songwriting?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The inability to understand something or acclimate to it, like a situation in your life or a feeling, the inability to acclimate to it is often where a lot of good songs come from. Because if you know something, then it's a little less interesting to write about. So I find that the best songs come from things that you don't fully understand, but you'd like to. That's like where the yearning comes from. It's all that dissonance, which obviously is, the mental health component about not being able to connect with an experience without feeling something off of it. That space, that dissonance, is a really good spot to write from.
And do you feel like that space, right, that separation, is that where the listener connects to it and sort of places themselves?
I think so. Or at the very least, the vulnerability of where the song came from is potent. But I think so. I think it's all those spaces. Like I said, it's why like the best protest songs don't come right out and say it. They kind of make you feel it a little bit, and then so like I feel like those little spaces around are where people actually live. So I just stay focused there. Like, why do I feel this way? Where is that coming from? Is there a question there? Is there something to write about? What compels me? I think about it a lot this week, putting an album out, because you write this diary over 2 years and you launch it out to the world, and you have to stop and sort of think, what compels me to do this? Similar to your Grammy question. And then I often go, let's go back to the studio.
I loved what you said in the LA Times piece that people can check out if you're watching this right now, of the difference between taking someone's picture with a camera and taking someone's picture with a phone.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same act, right? And the phone might be like a better quality, but it's not going to be a better picture. Do you find that so analogous different to what you're talking about with like falsely optimizing songwriting?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. and there'll always be there's a huge industry, especially like we live in this like how'd you do it culture, like endless master classes in this, and you can do it too. And it's like I don't feel that way at all. Like sometimes I barely feel like I can do it. Like it's very mysterious. I don't know where it comes from. Like I remember I saw this thing online. It was like Martin Scorsese teaches script writing. It's like, oh, does he? Like, because I always thought you just had to fucking be Martin Scorsese. But yeah, it's so mysterious, and I think that's what keeps me coming back.
Speaking of the next sort of frontier mountain and adventure, what have you, you're working with Lana on Lasso, and that's said to be a country album. And you're such a lover of songwriting. What a wealth of songwriting history in that genre. What do you think it is about country music? You touched on this a little bit in the LA Times piece, but I'm curious for you to expand on it. That is just resonating right now in culture to such a degree.
I think the resonance of country music is analogous to why the most expensive restaurant in the world is like a carrot that came right out of the ground with oil on it. You know what I mean? Like there's this huge return. Like why are we selling so much vinyl? Right? Why is everybody like walking? Like there's this giant rejection of the future has been designed for us by a very small group of people that doesn't really take in how people feel. And I'm fascinated and feel it myself, this pull to be with people, make things more tactile. I can have an endless playlist, but when I buy a piece of vinyl and it takes up fucking room in my house, it speaks different. I think people are listening to the radio more. It's like, it's interesting. It's more interesting, the randomness of things, the entire economy around our lives nowadays, and the biggest business in the world is to just optimize everything. And I don't often think that anyone ever stopped to wonder if anyone wanted it.
You also have a bunch of new songs out. That's why we're here talking, Jack. So thank you so much. Congratulations, Bleachers.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for thank you guys so much.